James, you want to talk matchup here?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
get into it.
let's do this. Mo, two things. One, we're basically just going back to what we were texting, but I think it's good for everyone else to hear. Two things come to mind now after the craziness of that, and I got to be on the field for the AFC title celebration. I don't think I
Yeah.
was allowed on the field. I just walked out there anyway because it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, which is my mindset going into Super Bowl 56 as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Hopefully NFL security is not listening.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just sneak by. Two things though. One, my mindset has shifted. Yeah, I didn't expect you to be here, but damn it, if you're here, you might as well walk away with the Lombardi because of how hard it is to get here. And who knows what's going to happen. And I expect them on paper to have a better team next year than this year, since they, can invest all these offseason resources and all of these things, and Burrow be a year removed. And it doesn't matter. You're already here. You might as well take advantage of it. Two, on paper, the Rams, it doesn't seem like a fun matchup for a variety of reasons. That defensive line versus the Bengals offensive line in particular is a bit scary. They have a shutdown corner that, while I don't think Jamar Chase can be completely taken away, maybe he could solve that a little bit in Jalen Ramsay. What do you think about this matchup on paper? What stands out, good and bad?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, the good and bad thing is like there's a handful of guys that you could spend 30 minutes talking about. God, that guy can screw up everything. And boy, look at this dude and what this guy has done against so many different teams. The Rams have a bunch of those guys. Aaron Donald, and I know specifically, Jake, you look at things through a very analytical, advanced metrics lens. But watching this league week to week, that's the best player in football. And I've felt that way for a while. And, people, as much as we talk about quarterbacks, what he can do to an opposing offense, I don't know how you game plan for him. I don't know, especially when your pass game operation gave up 9 sacks 2 weeks ago. So that terrifies me. And then you could obviously talk about the rest of their defensive line. The Jalen Ramsay thing is fascinating to me, both in terms of how they deploy him, what he does against Jamar Chase, and then how the Bengals may or may not respond is certainly fascinating. And, Cooper Kupp catches everything. I mean, he won the Triple Crown at wide receiver. And then, they've added Odell Beckham Jr. and it's worked. People dismissed the idea of this clown show from Cleveland going there and helping that team. And he has. And so, but for me, it starts with the Rams defensive line. And I watched that entire Tennessee game on pins and needles because the concern was not the sacks. It's obviously something you don't want. And not even nearly as much. Boy, the beating Joe Burrow is taking does the pressure cause a pick? And the reason to me why this team has gone on this run is they've won the turnover battle. I'm not the first person to point this out. It's very cliche. They're 12-1 when they don't lose the turnover battle. The last 3 games that mattered in the regular season, they didn't lose the turnover battle. They won those games differently. They played a field position game against Denver. They just absolutely ran past that beaten up Baltimore team, and they had to overcome 3 different 14-point deficits against Kansas City and use some deft game management at the end. But the key to me was the common denominator, 0 turnovers on offense. They've obviously had some turnovers on offense here in the postseason, but their defense has come up big at the precise right time. And you talk about among the most surreal things, this Bengals defense, which for years we've talked about needing to create turnovers. They've ended their last 3 games with the last defensive play being a turnover. That is insane if you have followed the recent history of this franchise. But despite all the pressure Joe has been under, despite, some critical situations, despite him not being nearly as good as we think he can be, they've done a pretty good job of taking care of the football. So what I really worry about is suddenly with the Jalen Ramsay dimension and the possibility, and one might say probability, of there being a lot of pressure from all places, but specifically in Joe's face, does that add up to the sort of turnover issues that we haven't seen recently, that we saw earlier in the season? That really, really concerns me about this game. And then, the other thing you talked about was just taking advantage of opportunity. People have used the term house money with Tennessee, more so with Kansas City, and now with the Rams. I sort of feel like there's an added importance on winning this game than there was last week. I think to a weird degree, losing last week would have been easier to swallow. It's Kansas City. You're on the road. They won this highly emotional, physical game against Tennessee. It's Patrick Mahomes. They've been there back-to-back years. Now you're 60 minutes away from a title, man. You're playing a very good Rams team with all sorts of schematic and personnel advantages, but it's not like you're huge dogs. It's a neutral site game played in the other team's stadium, but I think the home field advantage that LA have is mitigated just by a Super Bowl atmosphere. And even still, it's not Arrowhead Stadium. I feel like there's a bigger premium on winning this game because you're that close. You're that close, and you don't know. I mean, I've talked about it a lot. The number of teams that you thought, boy, they're poised for long-term success, and they didn't win another one. You know, Seattle should have more than one, and they blew the one they lost against New England. Can you imagine if they don't do what they did to Denver? You got to take advantage. You simply do not know. And look, this team has been remarkably healthy. That doesn't really carry over year to year, and I really worry about that in 2022. Their best asset, especially if Uzama can come back and play, their best asset is going to be their health against an LA team that right now has some health issues that they've got to sort through. I really sort of place a great amount of importance on winning this game, not from the standpoint of, God, it's a failure of a season if you don't win, or it undoes the magic of last week against Kansas City. We're always going to talk about this team in maybe reverential terms. We're always going to remember this playoff run. It does really feel like they're set up to be pretty good for a while. But when's the next time that you can say they're going to be 60 minutes away from a championship with a healthy team and a quarterback who had an MVP caliber season? I don't know. I can say that now, which means to me, yeah, there's some pressure to go ahead and finish the deal.
That's always what it is. Maybe it is house money, but even if the team is better on paper next year, as James alluded to earlier, so much still has to go right to get to this spot. The Bengals have been dogs for 2 weeks, which means the other team has been better on paper, at least to the people setting the lines at the sports books. And they've overcome that for 2 weeks in a row, and now we're looking for them to do it another time. Mo, you talked a lot about the thing that we're going to be talking about. We haven't even really started talking matchups in this game yet, but obviously Aaron Donald is top of mind because the guy is probably the best player in football. And for me, when I look at this team and the way they've reacted to pressure, because Joe Burrow's been under a ton of pressure the last 2 weeks, it was okay against Las Vegas, not Oakland. It wasn't so good against Tennessee, obviously, and it wasn't so good last week, but Burrow made it work last week a way he didn't make it work against Tennessee. But what I've seen from this offense is they're going to great lengths to hide the offensive line right now. Joe Burrow has generally been fantastic at dealing with the pressure. He's not putting the ball in danger, to your point, Mo. He's taken maybe more sacks against Tennessee than you want him to. He didn't need to take all those if you want to get nitpicky, but he's not turning the ball over. And so instead, what's happening is the Bengals offense is just kind of kneecapped right now. Their passing offense consists of quick game and sideline vertical shots and a play action game against Kansas City that wasn't all that good. They hit a couple big plays out of it, but Joe Burrow also was not very efficient in the play action game. His one interception came in the play action game against Kansas City. So that's what I'm kind of going to be watching, I guess, is what do the Bengals do this week to try to mitigate the pass rush and their passing offense? How do they adapt to it this week? Because against the teams that'll give you single coverage outside and not roll coverage over the top, they'll try to beat it with some vertical shots on the sideline, right? And against the last 2 games, they've had to get really conservative, I think, with the passing game, although they did try to take some shots against Kansas City. If the Rams decide to stay really patient, I think that's a bigger challenge in the pressure than, Joe getting hit, because he's taking care of the ball. There's always a turnover X factor, but how are they going to adapt and deal with the pressure from an offensive planning and strategic point of view is what I'm going to be really interested to see.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't been great on offense these 3 games. They've been good enough and they've had their moments, but they've gotten here on the strength of opportunistic defense, a money kicker, the quarterback taking care of the football, and a little luck and a little magic and a little sort of opposing coaching buffoonery. I mean, let's and by the way, none of that is a knock on what they've done. If you're going to get to the Super Bowl, you need some luck, and you need the teams you beat to be complicit in their own demise. But I agree with you. It does feel like, if you would have said coming into the postseason or even, a few weeks prior, Bengals get to the playoffs, and they race to the Super Bowl, you would have said, well, God, it's because they beat teams, 35-31, or they, just hammered teams and blitzed past them, and Burrow was amazing. That hasn't been the case. They've won 3 close games, and they've needed the other team to be complicit, and they've needed, Evan McPherson to be as good as he's been. They needed, Tennessee to sort of bungle the end of regulation, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to do something similar. I do worry what would happen if this team has to take it up another notch offensively for the reasons you just articulated. And, what you saw late in the season would suggest yes. The Bengals brand would suggest yes, because everybody still talks about how explosive and high-flying this offense has been. It really has sort of gone into a shell, and they've done it by necessity. Can you play the sort of game, maybe not to the same degree, but can you play the sort of game you played against Tennessee, which is, dude, you're going to take some sacks. You're going to have to maybe hold on to the ball longer than you would like, but it beats throwing it to the other team. Can they win a game like that against this type of team? Can they win another game like that against anybody, I guess would be a fair question. But this team's offense, if you're going to beat the Los Angeles Rams, this team's offense probably does have to perform better than it has. And I think you're being fair. Again, for all the reasons you just outlined, I think you're being fair if you wonder if that can happen.
Well, it's Joe Burrow is what it comes down to.
Yes.
It's Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford, right?
Right. Yeah, sure. But,
Stafford hasn't been bad. He's turned the ball over, but he hasn't been bad. He's thrown a lot of touchdowns.
But he'll give you chances just the way Tannehill did.
Yeah,
right.
No doubt.
Yeah, no question.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe a Zach Taylor trick player too, Mo. Something that we haven't seen. Trent Taylor.
Who the hell
would have guessed Trent Taylor?
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. So,
but it's interesting. Like, it's been this postseason of like Jermaine Pratt makes the play at the end of the game, and Samaje Perine sort of changes, just the dynamic of that game in Kansas City. BJ Hill has a pick. It's been all these like unlikely heroes. All right. There's going to have to be a game where your stars are stars, right? But T. Higgins was really good against Kansas City, but there's going to have to be a game where like you're just studs are studs, and can you count on the Trent Taylor play and the BJ Hill play and excuse me, the Samaje Perine play? But you've got some time, and they've cooked some things up that we haven't expected. So give Zach Taylor some time to cook up something else, and let's see if we see it a week from Sunday.
He's Mo Egger. Make sure you catch him every single weekday, 3 to 6 on ESPN 1530 or the iHeartRadio app. Mo, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for jumping on, and I will see you in Los Angeles. Will see you in Los Angeles.
I will see you guys in LA. That you talk about surreal. That might be the surreal thing. James, you and I only hang out when we're in other cities. So right. I never actually see you in Cincinnati. That's going to be bizarre when I see you guys and when I see others, and we're there for a Bengals Super Bowl. That's going to be ridiculous. Could you imagine, James, when you were working with me and you're like, I'm going to go down to the locker room and record an interview per week, that now you would be hosting shows from LA for the team that you cover? Come on.
No. I get it. None of it, right? You just, it's crazy. And that's why they have to take advantage.
It's a hell of a lot more fun than covering the Cleveland Indians, isn't it?
That's right. No doubt.
Guardians?
Sorry, the Guardians. James didn't cover the Guardians.
I covered the Indians, so it was factually correct. In the LeBron-less Cavaliers, think about that. The good news is
now. They're good now, so
Yeah, my guy Darius Garland. But the thing is I came back for the Bengals version of LeBron, so it worked out.
Yeah, you're right. Guys, we'll see you in LA. Thank you.